Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today we're doing a Should You Back It on Nemesis Retaliation from Awaken Realms. Nemesis Retaliation, which just crossed $10 million, 35,000 backers. This thing has 22 hours left to go, so apologies for being last minute. I knew it was going to be last minute, I didn't realize it was going to be this last minute, but you have a day left to go ahead and back this campaign, plus, of course, I don't know, 18 months, however long the late pledge is open. I guarantee you'll have the opportunity to get this game for quite some time, so there's not a major rush, but I guess a little rush. Let's go ahead and get into it. This is Nemesis Retaliation from Awaken Realms. Before we go ahead and begin this video, please note disclaimer that I work for GameFound. GameFound does have shared ownership with Awaken Realms, completely separate teams, and of course this is being hosted on GameFound. Please take any potential biases into account as we go through this. But with that, this is going to be a Should You Back It. I'm going to be going over the campaign, I'm going to be talking briefly about the game, what's new in Retaliation, some of the things going on, the various optional buys, the various stretch goals, just going over high-level stuff. This will not be the most in-depth video you possibly could have because they are giving you the opportunity to spend $1,000, or if not more than that, more than $1,000, especially if you're getting sun dropped and shipping, and who knows what else. There's a way to spend a lot of money on this game, and I mean, there's a lot of things to get into. I will not be doing a deep dive into Nemesis or Nemesis Lockdown. I'll be talking about all the new things from Retaliation, but let's go ahead and get into this. Starting off with the fact, which is, what is Nemesis? If you're new here, now, and timestamps to everything down below in case you want to skip any various sections. Nemesis is a game from Awaken Realms. It is one of the highest ranked thematic games on Board Game Geek. It's been a very popular game for a long time. It's now on their third crowdfunding campaign. They had Nemesis, they had Nemesis Lockdown, and now they have Nemesis Retaliation. Nemesis Lockdown was the second game in the series. It did incredibly well. It brought in a lot of people into the series, and it represented some small shifts and changes to the gameplay, but Retaliation represents a much larger shift to the model. Retaliation is going to be the third iteration in the series, and the basic gameplay, before we talk about what Retaliation does, the basic gameplay is a semi-cooperative experience, which is usually a death blow. The words semi-co-op are usually a harsh critique of a game, but in the case of Nemesis, it is one of the few games that has managed to adopt that aspect of the game and thrive with what it does. The general idea is it's a horror experience. This is Alien the board game. You are on a ship, you are having various aliens pop out of the various ventilation shafts at any moment, and all the players on the ship have their own goal. They have their own way that they're trying to operate. Maybe one player is trying to go ahead and set the destination to that location. Someone else is trying to collect a bunch of eggs from the queen. Someone else is trying to kill the queen. Everyone has their own goals in the game, and you might be able to all win together, but also you might have a goal that involves you backstabbing and shooting another character, so you never really know who's on your team or not, but you can't be at each other's throats because you will not survive alone, at least not at the beginning. Maybe if you get far enough into the game and get your goals done and eventually shoot someone to the back, maybe you'll survive on your own, but it provides a large degree of tension, a large degree of a cinematic experience, which is what Nemesis is known for. Lockdown brought small changes to the formula, but Retaliation is going to be the biggest shift to the experience yet, in the sense that this time you are Marines walking in prepared. You know that there's enemies, there's going to be more horror on the board, you're still going to have that semi-cooperative experience, you're still going to have the threat and tension of an enemy in your space and the difficulty of dealing with an enemy once they are in front of your face, but you're also going to have a lot more swarms, hordes moving across the board, jumping between room to room, traveling along the corridors. You're going to move from room to room, they're going to move along the corridors, eventually they'll kind of creep into your location, but that means this combines the complete shoot-'em-up mashup of a zombicide-like experience with the tension of the original Aliens experience. This is the most military, most shoot-'em-up Nemesis experience while still holding on to all the aspects that made the original Nemesis great. That's kind of a brief overview history of what the system is, what's going on here, and what this campaign is. Now, if that's it, fine, go ahead. There's 3 games. There's Nemesis, there's Lockdowns, Retaliation. Pick your poison, enjoy. But there's a lot more going on here because there's also going to be a million stretch goals, going to be a million optional buys. There's going to be a million things that keep the pledges different. And let's go ahead and start this off with talking about the various rewards over here, which means I have to go ahead and hit this over here because my page is jamming up. There we go. We have the rewards for the campaign, starting off with the $299 pledge. This is going to represent all the Nemesis Retaliation items. Now, please keep in mind that as you go to a pledge over here, you can click Add to Pledge, and you can click over here, do you want Gray or do you want Sundrop? Which means if you want Sundrop, if you want those shaded miniatures, you have to go into your pledge and go ahead and click to add it, which means the price point for things does go up. So sure, it's $300 all in, but there's also going to be shipping, there's possibly going to be VAT, there's going to be the actual Sundrop, all those things. So there's a lot of things being added to even the base or even the all-in pledges. But for $300, you can get absolutely everything Nemesis Retaliation, with the caveat that you have to spend a little bit more to actually get absolutely everything Nemesis Retaliation. They have the core accessible pledge for $65. It's going to be giving you the stretch goals, and we'll cover the stretch goals soon, but this is given to you in a standee version. So it's the most basic intro point to Nemesis. It gives you Nemesis Retaliation at a standee version, an optional, an easy drop-in. Again, you still have to pay for extra things, so it's not going to be $65, you still have to pay shipping and all of that, but it is going to be the cheapest entry point into the Nemesis universe, while still giving you these stretch goals from this campaign. So if you're here for the gameplay at the cheapest price point, that's going to be the thing to focus on. We have Nemesis Retaliation Core Pledge over here. This is going to be the miniature version of a Nemesis, along with all the stretch goals as well. We'll talk about all the value aspects soon enough. We have Nemesis Retaliation Collector's Pledge over here. This is going to be giving you the core experience of Nemesis, plus all the things that make that experience better. Various terrain, pledge, the untold stories, the art book, things like that. I think the art book's in it. You have art books in it as well. The playmat is going to give you all these extras that enhance the core game experience, but it's not really giving you extra gameplay. Past, of course, you are getting the stretch goals, so you're still getting that. But if you're looking at the Collector's Pledge versus the Retaliation Core Pledge over here, you're spending an extra $80 to get things that enhance the gameplay experience, but are not gameplay focused in and of themselves. Which, yes, Untold Stories is gameplay focused. You could get that as an optional buy. Everything here you can get as an optional buy, but that's going to be the Collector's Pledge. We have the Retaliation Military Pledge over here. This is going to be giving you all the core gameplay. If you just care for all the stuff that's gameplay, you don't care about Untold Stories, you should care about Untold Stories, you don't care about the playmat, you don't care about the art book, you don't care about that, but you don't want to spend $300, the Retaliation Military Pledge is the thing that's for you. This is going to give you all the gameplay, and we will talk about what each of the gameplay expansions add to the table shortly. We'll be getting to that soon, but that's kind of giving you an overview of what the pledge levels are going to be bringing. And then we have the Trilogy Pledge, which we'll get to soon, but for Retaliation, those are the pledge levels you have. $300, plus possibly more, sun drop shipping, etc. For everything, we have the cheapest option at $65. We have $109 for the core pledge, $189 for the collectors, the enhanced core pledge, and $229 for all the gameplay. Those are the 5 core pledges you are looking at here. Then we have the 2 other pledges, which are going to give you all the other content. We have Nemesis Trilogy Pledge, $345. It gives you a core plus stretch goals for each of the 3 campaigns. If your goal is having the breadth of the experience here, without the nuance of diving into any individual one, but you kind of want to get a little taste, a little flavor of it all, this is what's going to give you that. Again, same aspects of paying more for sun drop, shipping, all those things. And we have the Nemesis Master Collection, which annoyingly enough, by the way, you have to individually select sun drop for each thing, so it might even take you a while to figure out the full total over there, but you're looking at between $900 to $1,300 between shipping, sun drop, everything, to get absolutely everything Nemesis. Which obviously you should think very hard and carefully before you get, because that's a whole lot of money to spend on a single game, says the guy who's backed 7 homicides. Anyways, with that, those are going to be your core pledges. We'll come back to whether you shouldn't back it, all those things at the end of this video, but let's talk about the stretch goals, because the stretch goals, and let's scroll down to the cinematic veiling over here, because I think it does a better job of showing it to you. We'll have to come back to the add-ons soon, but we're going to stretch goals, then add-ons. Stretch goals over here. So every 2 days, they're adding a new stretch goal over here to the campaign, and we're in the last day of the campaign, so you're seeing it all. But we have day 1, we have the Bio Enhancement Expert. It's going to be an extra character added to your game as a stretch goal. This is classic for Awaken Realms, although I will say there's a lot of people in the campaign who have been complaining about the value of this versus the original campaign. I won't, you know what, let's talk about the value. I'll talk about it briefly, but I'm not going to be focusing a ton of time on it, but I'll explain why I won't at the time. We have day 3 with the Neo-Flesh Cult expansion. The Neo-Flesh Cult is going to be a new alien race you can deal with as one of these stretch goals. It's going to be one of the focuses of the stretch goals, constantly allowing you to vote on and engage with the extras in the campaign. And the Neo-Flesh Cult effectively is going to be eating their own, which means the queen in the game, and there's always a queen in Nemesis, the queen representing the strongest character, but the queen in the Neo-Flesh Cult is going to be growing stronger and stronger as the game progresses, as they eat their own flesh and corpses and gets larger as the game goes. So you have to figure out when you want to tackle and take them down, because if you wait too long, they go stronger in the game. And that's going to be their miniature sculpting or whatever, not sculpting, not render, not even render, a artistic representation of a render, I guess, and then of course the art, the minute standee, all of that. Then we have new gear being added to the game, new gear, weapons and armors being added as another stretch goal. We have the extra die. Awaken Realms had their own little campaign for a set of, deluxe dice or whatnot. They're adding one of those as a Cyber Monday surprise stretch goal. We have the Insider expansion. For the first time, you're going to have an NPC joining your Nemesis game. I believe this can be used in Untold Stories as well, if I'm not mistaken, but it's going to add new layers, scenarios, narratives, all that, but it's giving you NPCs for Nemesis. So you have other characters who are being added to the game that aren't, the enemies or other players at the table. We have some more information about the Neo-Flesh cultists. We have the Neo-Flesh Twitchlings over here. Again, just more basic details over here. We have medical support. We have a new medic character, medical support character for the game over here. We have more Neo-Flesh cults over here. Again, these are all the stretch goals, slowly just going through it. We have the ranged shooter for Nemesis. So if you're looking for a ranged shooter character in Nemesis, you'll have that in the Neo-Flesh cult. And we have the Exploder over here. So just lots of Neo-Flesh cult add-ons being added to the game. Then we have the shield robot. We have, well, the shield robot actually looks really cool. I really like Sculpt 4 personally over here. Then we have the space platypus over here, a first player token. Awaken Realms is famous for having in the Nemesis series tons of variety of cats in the game, and they're adding the space platypus as well over here. And that's going to be what we have as far as stretch goals for the game, the main focus being the Neo-Flesh cult, but then additional items being added as well throughout the course of the stretch goals. And that's just the things you're getting for paying extra compared to retail, because if you get this game at retail, you will be getting the core Nemesis experience will likely be either the same or cheaper price at retail. It's priced relatively well compared to retail, but even so, I mean, if you look at, $109 for $109 retail, it's roughly the same, but you'll be paying that extra shipping, and you have to wait for it, obviously. So if you're just here for the core Nemesis experience and nothing else, you should wait for the retail options instead. But you won't get those stretch goals, which is the main reason to consider getting those, but again, we'll talk about that in the Should You Back It. Which brings us to the optional buys. Optional buys over here, I'm going to focus briefly on what each of the new expansion brings to the table. I will not be focusing on all the optional buys for Lockdown and for the original Nemesis. That would just make this video way too long and way too much information about old campaigns. But we have the Zirians, a new enemy race over here. These are going to basically be the most similar to an actual enemy AI character. These are more intelligent species. When you hit them, they vanish in a puff of smoke. They might pop up any given time. They melt into the walls. They can trigger instigations with the enemies. They can they can set off the auto-destruct on the ship. So they have the most intelligent sense of the enemy races over here. Brings you the Zirians as an optional buy. If you want to face off against not just a horde of aliens, but something that can mess with you and also fight those aliens as well at the same time, the Zirians are going to be an expansion to add over there for $17. For $45, we have the Sangravers, a new enemy race, basically being, Nemesis alien vampires over here. This is going to be the vampire aliens. They also have those humanoid characteristics. They can melt through doors, so they can walk through, areas that aliens otherwise couldn't have gone through. You can potentially even convert other players to their side, so you can have encounters with them, where you'll unfortunately, may or may not have your goals and objectives changed, and the other players may not know because they're a vampire. They bit you. So it's basically space vampires is going to be the Sangravers for $45. For $16, we have the Support Squad, giving you 2 new characters. That's all it is. 2 new characters. If you're interested in more characters for Nemesis, by all means, go ahead and get this. If you don't need new characters, then, and by the way, if you have all the Nemesis stuff, although it's not really cross-compatible, so I should note that. It's not strictly speaking cross-compatible. You can mess with some things back and forth between the various, campaigns, but not everything between the systems are cross-compatible. Worth knowing that. We have Untold Stories. This is going to be Untold Stories 4. They've had Untold Stories 1, 2, and 3, and now we have 4, and this gives you a cooperative way to go through Nemesis in a story-driven campaign that's going to have you tackling a bunch of challenges, taking on missions. This is fully cooperative. This continues their line of Untold Stories. If you are looking for that gameplay pledge, and that's it, the Untold Stories is technically not in the gameplay pledge, which means you might want to consider adding that if you're looking for that there. We have the Terrain Pack for $39, bringing you the lander model, the various miniatures and robots and all these things, giving you a bunch of extras to enhance the cinematic experience on the table, 3D doors, various turrets, oxygen generator models, all the things for the game that would otherwise be tokens, being enhanced on your table for $39. This will improve the visual aesthetic of the table, but it's not anything gameplay related. It is purely for the aesthetics of the experience. We have the Acrylic Pack, and I'm not going to click through all of these over here. We're basically upgrading the various tokens to various acrylics for the various pledge levels. So we have the core, the Acrylic Pack for $14. We have the Stretch Goal Acrylic Pack for $8, and they have all the various add-ons for $8 as well. So that's going to be the various acrylics you can get to enhance your experience for $30 total for those. We have the Alternative Queen Miniature, which I happen to not like, by the way. I really don't like this queen at all. I would not get this, but historically Nemesis has generally had alternate miniatures for the various kings and queens and all those throughout the game. This is going to be an alternate miniature for $9 for an alternate queen miniature with no gameplay aspect to it. This is purely about the aesthetics on the table. There's no gameplay whatsoever. We have the art book for $16, the playmat for $23, the sleeves for $12 and $4, and that's going to be all the things you have for Retaliation add-ons. We don't have them. I'm not going to go through the lockdowns. We have everything for lockdown. We have everything for the base game. You can break out whatever it is you want for an absolute ton of ways to spend a whole lot of money, including getting a plushie cat, which I don't know why they're limiting that to the base. They should have those everywhere. We have Side Quest Nemesis for $13, a little small box escape room game that's not in the, it's in the Nemesis universe, but completely separate. We have Board Games on My Mind for $22. So a bunch of other various things over here. We have Nemesis Constructs. They have a whole bunch of things for the game, for the original games, outside of the game, for absolutely everything. That is going to be your Nemesis campaign over here. Which brings us to, should you back it, should you not, all of that kind of stuff. And there's a bunch of things to get into here, but let's start with the complaints against the campaign, because there have been a lot of let's call them grumpy people who are upset about the perception of value on the campaign. And there's a few things to go into, and this is not just perception of value. The fact that, you know, some of the things have been, you know, additional optional buys. You're getting characters in optional buys as opposed to a stretch goal. Congratulations, you're helping us spend more money as opposed to giving us something extra for free on this $10 million campaign. And I'll touch upon a few brief things, but honestly, Awaken Realms did it best themselves. They covered it in a full update, talking about the sense of value, the sense of optional buys, the way things work. Over here on this pledge over here, we have Nemesis Retaliation, update number 12. They go into it and they give great answers, to the point that King of Average did a full video covering that update, and I think that update deserves a full video. Basically, Awaken Realms talked about the nature of campaigns, the nature of the, you know, what actually a $10 million campaign buys you, the nature of being responsible to your own employees, to your own company, making sure you don't overpromise and underdeliver, the nature of having stretch goals and things like that, and optional buys paced out across the course of the campaign, as opposed to showing all of you at once. Yes, there is some marketing gobbledygook in there. At the end of the day, if you show someone a $900 pledge day one, you might lose them forever. If you show them $100 at a time, bit by bit, you might slowly hook them into it. There's absolutely marketing going on throughout the course of this campaign. But there's also the truth that Awaken Realms, and again, disclaimer, because I'm about to defend them to an extent, but disclaimer that I work for GameFan, take that bias into account. But Awaken Realms has not charged anyone extra money for any of their campaigns. They have not gone through any of the various difficulties that other companies have along the way. They have been there the whole time. They have been consistent the whole time. The fact that you might not get the same level of stretch goals in Nemesis Retaliation like 6-7 years later than the original Nemesis. Is it 6-7? I don't actually know. I didn't check the dates, but it feels like 6-7 years later than the original Nemesis. The fact that you're not talking about the same ecosystem in terms of production, in terms of cost, in terms of shipping, that is absolutely true. You should not expect the same value. More and more, most campaigns are not giving you enough reason to back in general nowadays. This is still worth backing. Is it as worth backing as the original Nemesis? Absolutely not. But if that's your goal, I mean, the ecosystem has changed. The landscape has changed. What companies can afford to take on, the risks they can afford to take, all of that has absolutely changed. So if you're looking for that same level of value, yes, you won't get that here. But if you're looking as far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value, and all those things, I can go through the individual pledges, but I almost don't need to. For the most part, most of the things you back will hold their value, with the caveat that once you start branching out of Retaliation, once you start going into some of the other things that are available, you do start running the risk that you are targeting an audience who doesn't have the visual Nemesis. If you spend $1,300 on Nemesis, you're targeting an audience that doesn't have any Nemesis, willing to spend that much. It's going to get harder and harder. But for the most part, does it hold its value? It does, for the most part. This stuff over here, in general, they are still giving you enough extras on an incredibly popular game. The fact that this campaign has done $10 million is evidence that there is tons of appetite for Nemesis out there, and Nemesis is consistently being sold. It still has a retail presence, which means this game is continuously going to be available. People are going to be hunting down the expansions, the options, the everything. The stuff you get here, the bang for your buck is still present, even if it's not the same as the original Nemesis. So if your question is purely will it hold its value, on almost everything here, yes, the more expensive you go, and once you go outside Retaliation, it should still hold its value, but you are hunting for a more specific buyer who's willing to shell out $1,300 to somebody, not for something currently on crowdfunding, which does get a little more nuanced. So again, I'd say that pretty clear for everything within the Retaliation umbrella, and once you move outside that, you have to be willing to wait for the right buyer, but it should still be fine. The different question entirely is, do you need all this stuff? And that also comes down to who you are as a gamer, who you are, what you're playing, what you're looking for. Spending $900 in any single game is completely insane. I made a joke earlier about, you know, says the guy who's backed 7 zombicides over the years. But keep in mind, I don't keep most of the zombicides. At any given point, I have 2 or 3, and even that is more zombicide than anyone needs. There's a difference between saying that you want to buy yourself something because you love the system and you're willing to treat yourself, versus saying this is a reasonable expense that we should encourage. There's a difference between those things. Most people watching this video should not be spending $900 on getting absolutely everything Nemesis. Most people watching this video should not be spending spending $300 or $375 for the Sundrop and all that to go ahead and get absolutely everything Nemesis Retaliation. Most of you will not benefit from going all in to that extent on this. Whether or not it holds its value, if you're looking at it as a personal paperweight that goes on your shelf, most of you just don't need that. But some of you might want that. So if you want to know if it holds value, yes. If you want to know if you should get the expense paperweight, I'll leave that up to you. If you're looking for my own recommendation based on what I know about the Nemesis system, and understand I'm saying this as somebody who appreciates and enjoys Nemesis, but not as someone who has played all this stuff. I've had the all-ins for everything. I have not dived into the various expansions. I've only really played the core games. And so even though the expansions do look very, very cool and I can talk with them, I'm still someone who's not the core, I'm not the hardcore target audience for a Nemesis gamer. I like the system. I enjoy the system. I don't need $900 worth of the system. But as far far as my recommendations, I'd say if you're just interested for the gameplay here and you want to go with budget gameplay, just go with that $65 option. You'll get a lot of gameplay for a reasonable price point, and the standees are going to be fine. The miniatures are nice, yes they are, but they're not essential, and once you start branching out to there, you're spending more money on all of that, and then you want to deluxify everything. If you're just here for the core Nemesis gameplay experience, spend that $65. Past that, I'd say that if you are looking for stuff, I don't know if all the extra things over here are really worth it. Yes, the doors are cool. Yes, the tokens are cool, but they also require extra setup and maintenance and tear down and storage and all of those things. So it's not just the monetary cost, but it's the practical gameplay cost. But I will say that a lot of the expansions for Nemesis Retaliation do look cool. I say this is somebody who isn't the hardcore target audience for this game, but they do look cool. The races that that act almost as an AI third race that messes with the gameplay, can set the auto-destruct, the Zirians, whatever it is, those look cool. The vampire flesh blood hunters, those look great. So if you're looking for pure gameplay, I do think it all looks cool, but it'll still cost you $229 plus shipping, and that's not for the Sundrop version. But if you're looking for that, I don't know, let's be a little bit irresponsible but also get a decent amount out of it, then I think the military pledge is likely where my own personal instincts guide me. But that said, you can get away with much less and still get an absolute ton of gameplay out of this. So, should you back or should you not? Will it hold its value? Yes, it'll hold its value. Should you get it? Personal decision based on whatever you think is reasonable, anywhere between $65 all the way up to like $1,300 to see just how much Nemesis deserves to be in your collection. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Boarding & Co. I hope you found this video helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.